All right, so I want to talk about a property that we brought a little over, actually a little under 2 years ago. This property was highly distressed in terms of the operation. The building itself, concrete building, built very well, even though the building was over 60 years old. However, the operations of the property were, we'll say, very interesting. The owner himself, it was basically the place in town where anybody could come and get a rent, right? Get a rental. They had furnished units, which were making up about 50% of their units, and they were supposed to be weekly rentals that they were furnishing out. Lo and behold, most of those people stayed longer because they had nowhere else to go. And then the other 50% of the tenants kind of paid when they want. So he was actually running two books at the same time, side by side. But what we found is that although he was making more income for those weekly rentals, I mean, we've all heard short-term rentals or Airbnbs, but because of the poor operations, they were so heavy on the management side, so heavy on the maintenance side for having to move in this furniture, move out of this furniture, store this furniture, that they were running at a very high expense level. The property itself, the owner was paying a number of things that he was disconnected from what the market was actually doing. He was paying for the electricity for the building, where all the surrounding comparable properties, the tenants paid their own utilities. He was paying for the cable on the property, when in fact, very rarely do any of the owners pay for cable on this. He was not billing back for water, which a number of the surrounding buildings were doing. And he was offering a very low rent. These are all two-bedroom units, one of the lowest rental rates for the area. So he was offering a $750 rent, and then he was paying back all these different utilities and different expenses that really should have been passed along to the tenant here. And the effective rent, meaning the bottom line rent after paying all this, was in the mid 500s. Now, if you were to look at comps, the actual comps were about $800+ on rent, even getting up to $900 at the time on that property. So you're talking that there was about $350 of delta between where the rent was and where the rent could go, with the tenants now taking on the burden of those expenses. Now you could call it a burden, but if you think about it, this is what all the other properties are. This is what the area warrants. So as we went in there, we had a lot of work to do. The leases weren't matching up. The tenants were, to say, subjective to the lease. They were not the best tenant profile, so we had a lot to do. We went in there, cleaned up the outside of the property, painted it very nice. It looked like really a concrete jail, to be honest. It was very gray, so we gave it some color, really splashed up the color, changed up the new siding, went in there and added a dog park, added in a pergola, added in a grilling station, updated all the pool furniture. The pool hadn't been opened in 2 years. Really made the property feel more welcoming. Really renovated the leasing office so you walked in, it didn't feel dark and dingy. And lo and behold, what happens? Well, some of the kids there, we start seeing them play outside. Some of the people start sitting outside because they feel better to live. Because just because the tenant profile may be lower than maybe what you're used to, doesn't mean they're not fantastic people and they want somewhere great to live too, right? So these people want somewhere great to live, and unfortunately, it wasn't being kept up. And as we did this, we started turning units, and what we found is that the marketing, we had a hard time at first because we were getting a lot of the old energy, where a lot of people coming there knew this was the place to go there. And when they found there was a new sheriff in town, a new property management in town who was now having expectations, having certain applications, certain criteria you had to meet, slowly upon slowly, we found that this property started trending, and those calls that you get 10 a day to 5 a day to 1 a day to 1 a week of people trying to call to just rent a room for a couple days slowly went out the window. So at first, to get to our qualified tenant, it was about 1 in 10 from qualified applications. Now today we're 1 in 3. So we've had a big update to what we've done across the building. We turned over about 93% of the units in a little over a year and a few months. Now our rents today are all in the mid 1,000 range. We're talking about $1,050. That's a big jump when you think about it, from a $550 effective rent day one to where we are today. And it didn't start just out of the gate. We had to improve the property, improve the persona, improve the marketing, improve the reviews, make tenants understand we are there to make this place better. And some of the cool things we found is that a lot of these tenants, some have stayed, right? They're good quality tenants and they've stayed. And we've also now had tenants who lived here a decade ago coming back and moving back into the state or moving back into the city and coming back here and saying, whoa, I can't wait to live here because of how much it's been improved. We've been able to harden out these units, keep our cost control down. It's really started to be just a huge revenue generating property for us. It's been a substantial turnaround, but it all started with having a plan in place, sticking to that plan, being patient with that plan, but also at the same time pushing that plan forward. So that's a quick story on one of our assets, the reposition of it. And when others, I remember we had one person say, well, look at the reviews today when we were thinking about when we just had gotten under contract. And yes, the reviews were not great. But that's what good operators do. They come in here today to find the vision of where this property can go and then put a plan in action to make this happen. Let's do this.